back in 2012, I launched mission-led enterprise People's Property Shop, and my aim there was to procure good quality rental homes and then make those homes available to those who were homeless or disadvantaged or would be traditionally excluded from this marketplace. And so I'd come up with this idea because I was previously working as a local government employee, and I could see homelessness was increasing rapidly, and there just simply wasn't the required level of housing stock within the local authorities to respond to the elevated demand. So I decided to use my knowledge and skill set and open up an organisation which would be mission-led, and it would be enterprising in the fact it would use business strategies, and it would go into the private sector and try to look for solutions that were enterprising and innovative. However, everything that would be undertaken throughout that journey would be mission-led, and it would be aiming to create social value and ultimately create social good. So I set People's Property Shop up with the aim of getting people into property, but also seeing what were the needs that they encountered along the way, and what were the challenges and what were the difficulties that were being experienced, not just by tenants who were poverty stricken, but by the property owners and agents and investors who were ultimately taking on the risk and encountering all of these issues for themselves. So when I got some traction with People's Property Shop and I started going out to networking events in order to integrate into the private rented sector a little bit, and I started to discover that there was lots of empty student property available, and this was because we'd had a bit of an influx in Manchester of HMO landlords, so that's multi-let landlords who want to let to a group of people who perhaps don't know each other, or maybe they do, but it's not letting traditionally to a whole family. And in Manchester, we've had a huge increase of HMO landlords who've chased obviously financial returns that can be involved with letting to multiple tenants as opposed to one household. So in Manchester, with this influx of HMO landlords, we've unfortunately not had the same elevated influx of students, and this has led to there's a huge amount of vacant stock around in Manchester and in a lot of other university towns as well. And I discovered this as I was networking on the Manchester property scene. And I was really, really lucky to meet a landlord who was holding a portfolio of stock within the student marketplace, and was anticipating that some of this stock was going to be vacant as the student year approached. And so we developed a really, really great relationship, and we started to work together over the next few years. And what we did was, taking some of my knowledge and experience from the public sector as I'd worked as a local government employee, we created some strategies and systems to reduce the risk of the investor if he was going to let to a more vulnerable tenant group within the private marketplace. And so that was how I went about obtaining property. And during the pilot scheme, I worked with property in Greater Manchester, a lot within central Manchester. But I also worked with other landlords and investors and lettings and management agents who were working even across the Northwest and a couple nationally, so that we could see how things were within different councils too, and did other landlords experience different problems to the landlord that had offered me some property in order to house the homeless in. So what we decided to do, this landlord and I, was take some of the property, a proportion of his stock, and let it to those who were homeless and vulnerable. And I've got a really inquisitive brain, and I'm really eager to learn and to improve and to become better and to explore. So we decided, why don't we, because we're doing something quite unusual, why don't we do a research project with the housing that we're doing, and why don't we document what we're doing, and why don't we try and involve some other organisations too and get some support and some collaborators. And why don't we do a research project and see just how successful we are at housing those who are homeless or vulnerable, and whether the private rented sector is actually a really viable option for those experiencing homelessness. can we overcome some of those more traditional issues that landlords are encountering, such as problems with rental payments or tenant disputes, or not understanding how to navigate the benefit system. All these little niggling issues which can create actually really large barriers to entry. So we thought if we were to do a research project, this could be really, really interesting, because it would allow us to have a look at what the options are available if you're homeless or vulnerable, what options are out there already, how well do they work, and could we utilize them and maybe work slightly differently and become more effective as wholly as responders to homelessness? And instead of keep enabling homelessness and dishing out soup to people on the streets and giving them sleeping bags, which is something we know is never going to end homelessness, can we solve homelessness with housing? And can we tap into some organisations who are supporting in an enabling fashion, and can we see if they'll work slightly differently and use some of their resources to support people who are moving into homes and help them to stay within those homes? So we decided to launch the pilot scheme, and this was launched in 2013, and I decided to contact, as mentioned previously, a bulk of the property I was working with was contained within Manchester boundaries. So I decided to contact Manchester Council and ask if they would collaborate with us on the pilot scheme. And they didn't want to get too officially involved at this stage, which was understandable, but they did say that they were happy to send us participants who could inquire about our services, and that's what they did. So quite quickly, I began to take inquiries from the Homeless and Housing Department at Manchester City Council. And I worked with, as word spread, I worked with lots of organisations who would give me a ring, who would pass my details on to homeless people or rough sleepers. And so we worked with referrals from all over the place. And we tried to be quite inclusive, and I felt that if we was doing a research project, we couldn't be restrictive on the people that we house within reason. We couldn't be discriminatory towards people that wanted to access our housing, and we wanted our results to be really fair and really measured and actually give a really true reflection of homelessness in Manchester and the responsive and preventative services that are available. And this was so that we could go on and build something that hopefully would be really cost effective and really utilize the strengths, talents and resources of all the sectors and get them working together in a really, really efficient manner. So I'm going to recap now, and then we're going to move on and talk about the types of tenants that we work with.